What's the dumbest thing someone ever told you that actually worked? Story 1. I had a headache at work, years ago at a previous job. I almost never get headaches, so it was pissing me off because I couldn't ignore it. My coworker, I can get rid of it. Come here, I'll squeeze your head. Me, what? I'll squeeze your head. And sure enough, he grabbed my head and squeezed the side so hard I thought he was going to fracture my skull. Then he squeezed from front and back. Him. Better? That headache was gone and never came back. Now I go around curing my coworkers' headaches. Everyone thinks I'm nuts until it works. Story 2. I worked for a courier company and this happened to my boss. He was on a long delivery out in the country. We're from Virginia, but he's currently in Kentucky. We're pretty country ourselves, but not like this. This is pre-smartphone era, so he stops to talk to a local for directions. Guy said, "Go as far as you can see twice and there's your turn." My boss stared with bewilderment at the level of deliverance that just came out of this guy's mouth. But he fixed his eyes on a spot as far as he could see. He drove to that spot and made a mental note of the next farthest spot he could see. Upon arriving at the second spot, dead on was the little unmarked turn he was looking for. We still quote it to this day, "Go as far as you can see twice." Story 3. Got a fuel pump for a very old S10. Put it in the truck, it did not work. Googled problem, lots of other people having same issue with same fuel pump, and no answer. Some random guy on a S10 forum that I found on page 3 of Google posted 10 years ago that the instructions were wrong on that fuel pump. You needed connect the red wire to the black one, and not the green one like the instructions said. Worked instantly. Story 4. I read a newspaper article about a guy who went to his local convenience store and bought 2 lottery tickets. Most people in that situation would play different numbers on each ticket in order to double their minuscule chance of winning. Not this guy. He was interviewed and said he believed that playing the same numbers on both tickets would double down his chance, showing somehow that he was really serious about wanting those numbers to win. So that's what he did. But it turned out that he actually did have the winning numbers for that drawing, and he owned 2 out of the 3 winning tickets. Therefore, he was entitled to walk home with 2/3 of the jackpot, instead of just half. Story 5. If you find yourself obsessing about something, set a date and stretch of time to worry about it. I have no idea why, but that was the only thing let me set something down in my mind and sleep one night. It was a piece of advice my mother gave me a few days earlier. Ironically, it was something else she'd said to me that was the source of the worry. Story 6. One day I came home from work and there was this little white box sitting on the counter. I asked my wife, "What is this thing?" She said, "It's a box that emits a high-pitched sound that only cats can hear, and it will keep Spike off the counters." Me, "How much did you pay for this magic box?" Wife, "It was $50. Me, $50 for a magic box that's not going to work? Can you return it? Wife, "Let's just see if it works and I'll return it if it doesn't." I ate my fucking words. This was 10 years ago, and my cat got up on the counter one time after we got the box and then never again. The box doesn't even work anymore. I think it's not even plugged in anyway. Still, the cat won't go near it. Sorcery. Story 7. Old UK stuff. But when youngish, I was told that if you held 8 10-pence coins together and wrapped them 2.5 times with black electrician's tape and then sliced through with a razor blade, that's how old this is, vending machines would accept them as 50-pence coins. A 5-fold increase. We didn't believe it, but tried it and experimented with a jukebox in a pub, and it actually worked. The only problem was that a guy turned up to empty the money box while we were there. He picked them up and looked suspiciously around the pub while we pretended not to notice. I believe there were a number of other related incidents around the Leicester area at the time. Story 8. When my firstborn was an infant, a friend told me that an old native woman said that to keep your baby from crying when you lay them in their crib to sleep, you should move your hand in a circle in the air near them, while slowly backing up and widening the circle until you leave the room. It sounded like a bunch of hooey, but my friend swore by it, and danged if it didn't work every time. No idea why, but my kids were all good sleepers. Side note that I certainly always would respond if they woke up and cried, because I wanted them to know that I was there if they needed me, but that didn't happen much either. Story 9. I couldn't figure out how to keep my cat from jumping up onto my shelf and yeeting my plants off the shelf. They were hardy plants, so they survived, but they took quite a beating. My aunt suggested I buy some citrus-scented air freshener and spray the shelf every few days. I thought, ain't no goddamn way, but I didn't want my plants to die, so I tried it. Be damned if it didn't work flawlessly. It's worked for 3 whole years now. Story 10. My therapist told me to give myself permission to grieve later, because I was grieving something that hadn't happened yet. It sounded so obvious when she said it, because she said, "You're going to grieve it later. It hasn't happened yet. So give yourself permission to grieve later, and to not right now." Bizarrely, it worked, for the most part. And I give myself permission to do other things later, too. Worry, get mad, cry, etc. Somehow the act of consciously telling myself I can do it later makes it not so overwhelming right now. Story 11. My cousin told me that if you have hiccups, have someone stare into your eyes and ask you when you are going to hiccup next. I laughed it off initially, but when I next got hiccups, I jokingly asked my mom to try it with me, and it works. When nothing else can get rid of my hiccups, it does it every time. I chalk it up to eye contact, and having to concentrate on the hiccups to answer when they are coming is some sort of placebo effect that changes your breathing pattern. Story 12. My husband and I used to live in an apartment, 4th-floor apartment with a balcony that was over a greenhouse. The actual greenhouse had walls around it and was gated. Never saw anyone going in or out of there. One day, while I was out having a smoke, a strong gust of wind came and blew my cap off my head, which did a boomerang in the wind for a moment, before dropping directly below me on the roof of the greenhouse. I really loved that hat. It was a beautiful purple full-round ball cap that I got traveling. I go inside to tell my husband, who doesn't seem to care much. I quickly scramble for ideas on how to get it back. I can't think of a single thing, and realize that unless I get the gates unlocked and a ladder, there's no way I'm getting it back. I would have made peace with this if the hat wasn't directly in my line of vision, so I'd have to stare at it every day. A storm was coming, so I knew if I just waited until tomorrow to see if I could find my way in, the hat would be ruined anyway. I'd consider jumping off my balcony to get it, but it was a glass roof, so no bueno. My husband then comes up with this idea. This was in Japan, so we had these things which are futon clamps. A lot of folks in Japan sleep on futons, which are like duvets crossed with mattresses. In the morning, people usually throw them over the railing to air out and use a futon clamp to anchor them. Husband grabs the clamp, opens it up, and holds the teeth open with a chopstick. He then ties 2 bath towel belts together and fastened it to the clamp. He tells me he's going to throw the clamp into the wind, so that when it lands on my hat, it will knock the chopstick out and fasten to the hat. I was upset, so I told him to fuck off and went to mope. 2 minutes later, he comes back with my hat. Story 13. If you want to earn a cat's trust, blink slowly at them. It sounds really stupid. It feels even dumber to do it, but it actually works. It takes a little time and repetition, but it actually works. The reasoning goes thusly. Cats stare wide-eyed and unblinking at things they feel might be a threat. They won't blink or look away in case you do something while they aren't looking. To take their eyes off of you means that they trust you not to hurt them while they aren't looking. So to show trust, cats blink slowly, leaving their eyes closed for a few seconds. If you do this back at them, it shows them that you trust them not to hurt you. And in order to earn a cat's trust, you must first show that you trust the cat. So if you're ever having trouble with a mistrustful, shy, or aggressive cat, blink slowly at them. Story 14. Our son got plantar warts on his feet. We went to a respected podiatrist but didn't want to do surgery or use acid to remove them because of the pain, and because our son is a ski racer, and we were in the middle of ski season. The doctor suggested we put small squares of duct tape on each plantar wart. It was the dumbest thing I thought I'd ever heard, but we tried it. Duct tape on the plantar warts. We were religious in our application, swapping out the duct tape every morning and night. And about 3 weeks later, when we started removing the duct tape, the whole plantar wart, core and all, came with it. It was 100% successful, removed all of the plantar warts, and he's never had them come back. I am still shocked that it worked. Story 15. My son had an ear infection. Got drops from the doctor, used the drops till finished, about a week, and the ear was worse. Made appointment with doctor. Told my neighbor about son's earache. She told me to squeeze onion juice in his ear. Asked doctor at next appointment. He shrugged and said it couldn't hurt. Took son home, warmed an onion in the microwave to make it juicy. Had son lie good ear down on the table and squeezed juice into the infected ear. Next morning, there is no pain or sign of infection. After that, whenever any of my children had an earache, I went straight to the juice. Cleared up ear by the next day. Every single time. Years later, I found out that it was what mothers used in England back in the day. Story 16. Once I was in a family gathering, everyone was there, and my Mill have issues with her phone. I can't remember what it is, but the issue persisted. I went into Google and did all the things they said, and it still wouldn't work. Then Grandpa came along, saw us fiddling and us getting more and more irritated whatever we tried isn't working. He just flatly said, "Well, just turn it off and on again." I was stunned. Like that has always been my go-to troubleshooting when I was 12, but has since stopped. I giggled to myself how dumb it was, but out of options, I might as well give it a shot. Sure enough, it worked. He didn't even stick around to see if it worked. He just knew LOL. Story 17. I'd tried various hiccup cures over the years. The one that most reliably worked for me was drinking water out of the wrong side of a glass. But it's a bit undignified when you're, like, at work or something, and sometimes it takes a few minutes to work on me. Then my mom told me to swallow a teaspoon of vinegar. Yeah, right, I thought skeptically. I'm sure it's yucky, but whatever. It will never work. Swallowed the stuff, mouth almost turned inside out. Hiccups, asterisk, instantly asterisk gone. Never again, I thought to myself, since it was so vile. Until one time many years later when I had really persistent hiccups that were annoying me so much that I finally gave in and thought I will try that fucking vinegar thing again. Of course, I didn't expect it to work, thought it was just a one-off the first time, and I was going to end up with regret and still with hiccups. But no, it worked like a charm. Story 18. This really dumb woman gave us this advice about our kid when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She said tell her that fairies come and fly around with her when she sleeps because she tried some new food. Worked like a charm. To illustrate how dumb this girl is, she gate-crashed my sister's wedding, she is my wife's friend, and asked my sister if she was the bride. My sister had the big white dress and veil on. Another time she took a trip to London and got on a bus there. She asked the bus driver how much, and he said tap your Oyster card on the receiver. She said I don't have one. He said do you have a debit card? She said yes. He said then tap that, pointing at the receiver. She tapped it with her hand. The bus driver shook his head and just told her to get on the bus. Story 19. I suffer from frequent and painful leg and foot cramps. While visiting my family for Thanksgiving, my idiot brother-in-law suggested that I do a shot of pickle juice. I thought it was the dumbest thing I had ever heard. Well, he brought me a shot glass of pickle juice and I gulped it down. I love pickles anyway. Within 15 minutes, my cramps were gone and they didn't return for days. I was stunned and amazed. Since then, I've used pickle juice to alleviate my cramps, and it works every time.